to. If you haven't got your cameras on and you would like to and you're happy to, then that's great for me because it makes it a bit more like the real thing. And at the very least, if you could have your full name on your the bottom of your screen, that would be really helpful so that we know who's come along and we can follow up with you. So good morning, official good morning from me. I hope you've enjoyed the morning so far. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melanie Pearl. I've met quite a few of you on a one-to-one basis and in workshops, so lovely to see a lot of familiar faces as well. I am the Employment Programmes Manager at Work Avenue. I've met a lot of you as an employment advisor as well, where I meet people on a one-to-one basis. And as Employment Programmes Manager, I look after events like this. And really sort of looking at our events provision and workshops and everything else that we run to really look at that we're keeping up with the market and we're offering what's really helpful to you in terms of getting work. And I've got my background is HR. I started in HR a long time ago. Of course, you wouldn't say that in an interview, but I'm saying that because I'm among friends. I started at Legal & General, moved on to work in local government, and then I was the HR director at the United Synagogue. And then just over 10 years ago, I started my own business, my own HR consultancy business. And at the same time, started career coaching or giving career guidance as well. So sort of, I didn't quite have a second career because I kept the HR as well, but I sort of added another one to it as well. And I really haven't looked back on that at all. So, and as many of you will have noticed, I am that bit older. So I'd like to think that I still look 21, but I know that's not really true. So, so I am that bit older and I've learned a lot along the way, but I'm also aware that there are certain things that I need to do to keep up and that I'm not quite the same as I was when I was 21. And I'm looking to share some of those tips along the way that I've gained from myself and from talking to others and from helping clients and from my career with you today. Richard Linden, another one of our employment advisors, there's three of us, Hannah and Dahan as well. Richard is on the call this morning with us, managing the chat and many other things for us. Richard, you just want to introduce yourself as well.
Yes, hi everyone. Richard, good to see some familiar faces, good to see some new ones. Yeah, as Mel said, I work on the employment team and I do a very similar role to Mel, although she has additional responsibilities in that I'm a careers and employment advisor, been at Work Avenue about 4 years. Nice to see you all.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm just going to share my screen and then I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about today. So hope you can all see that. Yes, thumbs up. Yes, good, brilliant, lovely. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so Dinosaur to Dynamo. Now we thought long and hard before we called this Dinosaur to Dynamo. After all, who wants to be called a dinosaur? But sometimes when we're looking for work and we're interviewed by people who seem quite young, who look at us, who we think look at us and think, I didn't realise she was this age. We feel like dinosaurs. So we're going to actually be talking today about how to actually demonstrate that you're not, that we are still dynamic, still able to perform well, and actually bust some of the stereotypes that people have of people who are older. So does it matter? Does age matter? Now, clearly, a lot of you have come along today and think, actually, yeah, it does. It does. But let's look at some of the positives. So just to get a couple of quotes here. David Bowie, aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you always should have been. Nice thought. We get to the point, you know, where people say, what would I tell my younger self? We've learned a lot along the way. There's a lot of experience to give to people. And that's still there, and that's a good thing. One from Albert Einstein, he did pretty well. I've reached an age when if someone tells me to wear socks, I don't have to, and he had the confidence to do that. And what I love about this picture of him, is that he's got his tongue sticking out, and he looks really quite a lot of fun, really. He looks like he's got lots of energy. And that's what we want to do, is we want to be able to show that we've got energy. Recently in the news, you may have seen Jessica Parker from Sex in the City, in the news, depends on which newspaper you read, of course, but they were talking about the fact that actually she is really furious about the fact that people are talking about her age, and the fact that actually she has aged. And she said, what am I supposed to do? You know, should I disappear because I'm a bit older? No, absolutely not. I mean, one of the things she's thrown in is the sex discrimination as well, in that if I was a man, then this wouldn't happen. But I know it's both men and women who experience age discrimination. So, ageism in the workplace, moving on to the workplace. Is it a myth or is it reality? And I'm sure you will all have your views depending on how you feel that you've been treated. Some statistics. More than a third, 36% of 50 to 70-year-olds feel at a disadvantage applying for jobs due to their age. It's quite high, a third, over a third. 58% of over 60s were made redundant during the pandemic, who weren't made redundant during the pandemic, were neither in or searching for work 6 months later. Quite a long time to be looking. Some of them may have chosen not to, it's true, but 58% is high. And age discrimination claims have risen by 74% during the pandemic. So it has hit older people hard. But, of course there's a but, there are other statistics, like the fact that a third of all workers are over 50. So lots of people over 50 are working. So it's not like we're not working. We're still fit and able to work and are in the workplace. 8 in 10 employers, 79%, huge, say older workers could help in knowledge and skills sharing. We need to find out where those jobs are. And much more recently, job vacancies from July to September this year were at a record high of 1,102,000, an increase of 318,000 from the pre-pandemic level in January to March 20. And we're seeing it. We have more jobs on our jobs board than we've ever had before, ever, not just pre-pandemic, but ever had before, over 100. And bearing in mind, we're not a recruitment agency, that's not the only thing we do. That's a huge number for us. And that is seen everywhere. So there's a large number. So actually, whether or not employers are ageist or discriminating, they've got to stop, because there's a big part of the workforce here that can work, and they're not finding it easy to fill jobs, and they need extra people. So for the first time ever in my career, and I told you it's a little bit of a long career, for the first time in that time, it's actually an applicant's job market. So we've got to work out how we get those jobs. So what's quite useful is to understand generational differences and how people think. And you may have heard of the terms. Generation Z are the newest people to the workplace, age up to 20. They're not really there yet, or some of them are, but not so many yet. They're tech savvy. They want it now. They want that instant gratification. And most of their communication is by social media. Ask them to phone somebody. Generally, I know I'm really generalising here, and of course there will be exceptions. But I am purposely generalising because this is how sometimes employers behave. They generalise, they think about stereotypes. Then we've got the millennials, the people aged 21 to 40, who on the whole might be the people who are selecting you for jobs. They're very open to tech changes. They're driven, they're dynamic, they're energetic. They question authority, but they're results orientated. They won't, they're not after a job for life. They job hop, they're flexible, and they communicate by text, email, sometimes by phone, but usually by text or email. And then we've got Generation X and the baby boomers, who are the people who are a bit older, over the age of 41. And that's sort of what's often called by people who don't know better, the old-fashioned way of working. People they like to know how they're doing. They want work-life balance, particularly Generation X want it more than the baby boomers who couldn't get it quite so easily, the war years and so on. Work-life balance is important, but so are working their hours. It's all about working hours, not necessarily results-oriented and fulfilling the job itself, although the two might come together. It's more about I must work my hours. And communication by email, phone, not afraid to use the phone. And baby boomers especially, really hardworking, want to know where they are, want security. So there is a difference. And it's interesting to when you just think, actually, it depends on how they've grown up and where they've grown up. But the tech changes are particularly important. And it's really important that you do keep up to date as much as you possibly can. So how does that impact on us? It's all very well me telling you about generational differences. How does it impact on our thoughts about whether this ageism is a myth or reality and what we can do about it? So the myths or the realities, what we hear, what somebody who is at this level, a millennial, might be thinking when they see your CV or when they interview you. This person is going to be out of date just because of their age, unlikely to embrace new technology or won't embrace new technology. Just assume that because those are the stereotypes that they are used to. Lack energy, enthusiasm, passion, slow, do things slowly, move slowly, stuck in a different age. They need a high-powered role because that's what they've been in before. And although they say that actually they're happy to move to a lower-level role, are they really going to stay? Are they really going to be interested in that? I'm not sure I can believe that because they've been at the level that they have. On the other hand, I can't recruit them at the level that they were before because I know that they're likely to be slow and they're likely to not embrace technology. I'm purposely using stereotypes here. Won't want learning and development. Think they know it all. They're going to be after my job. Can't really take them on. So these are the kind of thoughts that people sometimes have, quite often have. So what do? They decide you're the dinosaur and your application goes in the bin. So what can we do about it? Because that's what we want to do. How do we become dynamic? How do we move from dinosaur to dynamo? Now, when I looked up what dynamo means, what dynamic is, what the meaning is of dynamic in a dictionary or in thesaurus, and these are the sort of words that come up: energetic, enthusiastic, full of new and exciting ideas, characterized by vigorous activity and progress, plenty of drive. So those are the things that we want to be able to demonstrate. We've got to be able to tell and show an employer, because the employer has already got this idea in their minds, even subconsciously sometimes, that subconscious bias, that you're not going to have that. So how do you show all these things? You say, you know what, I've got all those things. It doesn't matter what the statistics say or what people say that they think. I can do all of this. So how do you show somebody that that's the case? So 6 tips for demonstrating dynamism, which is what we want to do. First of all, keep learning. You might think, I've done my learning, not really into that anymore. Train in something new. It keeps the brain occupied, but it also shows that you're able to keep up and you're there with people who are younger than you and able to do what the organisation requires of you. Embrace technology. Okay, embrace maybe is too strong for some people. Some of you may be thinking, you know what, I'm never going to be as good as the young person. If you've ever watched somebody who's really good at technology, they are fast. You know, very often young people who have grown up with it are very, very fast. And you might be as well. But the stereotype says you're not. It says that actually you're probably a bit slower. You're probably going to take your time a little bit more. So move yourself along a little bit. If you've never touched a computer, get yourself on a Word course. If you've mastered Word, move on to Excel. Look at having an online presence. Look at the very minimum LinkedIn. If you've already got LinkedIn, look at whether you can be more involved in social media. The more you can do, the more you demonstrate you're up there and up to date. And volunteer. To gain experience, volunteer. That's how I got into career guidance 10 years ago. I volunteered half a day a week as a careers advisor. Half a day, I didn't have to do it every day. It meant that I could still run my own business. Obviously, if you're looking for a job, that might work only for a short period of time. For me, it worked because I was starting up my own business. But volunteering is a great way of gaining new skills because it's much easier to get a voluntary role than it is to get a paid role. And they will happily show you. So think of it as training. I know people say, you know, I need to earn money. I can't do this. Think of it as training. If you don't have experience in a particular area, be quite choosy about where you volunteer. We can talk to you about volunteering organisations where you can look for the right kind of role, but it's a way of gaining experience in a particular area. Optimise your CV. So you might be really proud of what you achieved 30 years ago. And you might find it really hard to lose that. I'm really proud of the fact that I started my career at Legal & General. That was a really good part of my life. But I'm not really going to put it on my CV. If I ever did mention it, I would mention it as I had a background working there, but I probably wouldn't because it was just too long ago to be relevant now. So as much, it's really hard to let go, and I know that sometimes, of things that have been an important part of your life. Think of them as experiences that got you onto the next experience, and let them go. Because if you go back too far on your CV, an employer knows when they look at your CV how old you are. Now, you might say, you know what, if they call me for an interview, they're going to see how old I am anyway. Unless, of course, you look 21. But that doesn't matter by then, we hope, because then any stereotypes that they have in their minds, you can bust those by demonstrating the fact that you are not the same as any stereotype that they might have, because all other things come into play when you meet somebody in person or on Zoom, come to that. So you want your CV to be ageless because your CV gets you the interview and the interview gets you the job, and they have different purposes. So make your CV relevant to the job. Don't send the same CV off to every job. Look very carefully at what they are looking for. And very often recruiters use ATS systems, applicant track systems that are automated, looking at keywords. And if they haven't got that, then sometimes they've got the most junior person in the HR department looking out for keywords. And if those keywords are not in there, your application is chucked out. So it's really important to look very carefully at what the job is looking for and pick those out. Think of it from an employer's perspective. If they want somebody who is going to do to be there to do a processing role, and you talk all about your management skills, and they don't need a manager, then what are they thinking? Actually, this person wants my job. They want to be a manager. So you do want to think very carefully about what you're going to put in there. So don't go back too far. Now, people sometimes talk about not putting dates on a CV. If you on jobs, you absolutely need to put the dates. If you don't put the dates on the job, then on the jobs, then people wonder why. They think, well, you're obviously hiding something. So you do need the dates on the jobs. Just don't go back too far. If something is really relevant that happened a while ago, you might have an earlier career section, earlier career highlights. Don't generally advocate that because you're still going back quite a long way. But sometimes it can work, and we can work with you to see whether that's right. But you do need dates on any jobs that you write down. But if your qualifications happened a long time ago, put them in, but don't put the date, because that will demonstrate when you took them. And don't write about your O-levels. If your O-levels happened a very long time ago, they may or may not need to be on there anyway. But use the word GCSEs, because O-levels straight away give away your age, and GCSEs are the equivalent. Have a LinkedIn account, put that on there once it's up to date. Don't put your home phone number. No one's ever going to ring you at home. But also it demonstrates, it shows your CV then is not contemporary. You've got your home phone in there where actually everybody is going to phone you on your mobile phone. So get that in there. It's little things like that that give away your age and you don't actually want to. Even your home address, you don't actually need that on there. Sometimes people will put the location where they are. That's sometimes quite useful, so the employer knows that you can travel to work to the job, but you don't really actually need to put your full address on there. Think about the right environment. So you don't really, if you're over a certain age, and particularly if you're not so computer savvy, think of words, look at words quite carefully. And if they have words in there that you think don't really apply to me, then maybe that's not the right organisation for you. So things like high energy, digital native seems to be a word that seems to have appeared quite a lot now. Ninja, guru, those kinds of sort of new, sort of trendy words that appear every so often. You might want to leave those companies out. And look for those that are much more likely to accept you regardless of your age. You can have a look at the company's track records on diversity. That's often interesting to know and gives you an idea as to whether or not it's going to be a good company to work for. And think about whether you want to change industry. Do you want to move to a different level? Are you trying to work at a level that actually you're not really at anymore? Because quite often our careers do go sort of on a up and then form a curve down, and that's okay. You know, we reach our peak and then we go down. Some people stay there and they choose to stay there, but be honest with yourself. Can I do that still? Do I still want to do that? Because the other thing is that very often other things take over. So, you know, you might want to spend more time with your family or on a particular hobby, in which case you wouldn't want to be there. So do be very honest with yourself and think, is this the right place for me? Am I applying to the right places for me at the current time? And sometimes that's about really giving up something that perhaps you've been really strong at in the past and it's really defined you. If you've been in a senior management role and that role has been made redundant, it's quite a tough call to have to think to yourself, I'm not that person anymore. I'm actually moving to the next stage of my life. So it takes time to get there, and we can certainly help you to think about it. But do be very honest with yourself, because if you're still trying to do the same thing 6 months later and you haven't managed to get into it, maybe there's a reason. Maybe we need to talk about it and say, right, okay, what else could you do? And think about other industries, other areas. Sometimes startups are a good place to look, or a charity. Where you can transfer your skills over. There's return to work programs sometimes as well. If you find those are quite nice and quite useful, and they're specifically asking for people who have had a career gap. And do you want flexibility? Do you want to work part-time? Do you want home working? There's a lot more home working around than there's ever been before, thanks to the pandemic. That's, you know, one thing that has come out of it, is that actually home working is around. Or never advocate asking about these things before you've actually got the job, but maybe that you'd like that flexibility. But with that flexibility might come a change in salary as well. So I do quite often speak to clients who are looking to move to a lower level role, but say, I can't afford to take the salary drop. And I get that. I don't have to pay your mortgage. I get that, you know, financially, it might not be an easy thing to do. But you have to be realistic, because the employer, quite honestly, is not interested in your own expenses. They have got a job for you. And can you do that job or can't you do that job? If you can, this is the salary it pays. So you do have to be very honest with yourself on that as well. Knowledge is power. So you've gained a lot of knowledge over the years. That's one of the things that comes with age, is that knowledge does grow. And you're proud of that knowledge, and you want to talk about it, and you want to shout about it. But if you put knowledge down that isn't relevant, the employer might be put off, and actually might even think you're overqualified for the job. And sometimes we have this sort of this spiral going where you think, well, okay, I'm overqualified for that, but I'll just send it anyway because maybe I'll get it. I am overqualified, so hopefully I'll get that. And then you don't get it because actually you're overqualified. And then you think to yourself, gosh, I can't even get that anymore. And that then affects your mental health. So think very carefully about the kind of role you're looking for, but then making the skills that you talk about relevant. And very often the skills that you can talk about in some depth are your transferable skills, sometimes called soft skills, like communication, organisation, reliability. One of the stereotypes of people who are a bit older is that you are reliable. We're more reliable than young people. I know it's a stereotype. We've talked about lots of stereotypes, but they are there. So make something of those on your CV and let people know that you have these particular skills. Sometimes a skills-based CV might work better for you than your traditional chronological CV. It depends on the situation. But demonstrate that you're up to date. Demonstrate that you really understand that industry, that you've done your homework, that you've really followed up, and you've researched the organisation you're looking to go into, and the industry around it. Follow the news about the organisation, particularly if it's a large organisation. Are they in the news? Are you aware of what's going on? And articulate the extras you bring if it's appropriate. For example, you might be thinking, well, actually, with my skills, I can be mentoring other people. I can be mentoring younger people. And there may be times where it's appropriate to say that, but there also may be times where it's not appropriate to say that, because that's not what they're looking for. So think about, what does the job actually require? Practice the hard questions. What I mean by that are the questions about, why are you doing this? Why, when you were a manager, a senior manager in a city firm, are you now looking for a job as an administrator in a local charity? Don't go in there thinking, I hope they don't address this. So you need to have your answer ready. You need to be thinking about it, and you need to be thinking about how you're going to articulate that, and we can help you to do that. And it might be that, I've been there, done that. I've been a senior manager, and I really enjoyed it. But now I'm looking to do something different at the time of my life where I've got other priorities as well as my work. And to be able to articulate what those are without looking like you're not going to spend all your time on the job in question. Or you might say, I've been a manager, but actually I'm much more interested in the nitty-gritty of the job. I want to do the actual work now. I miss it, and it's something I want to do. But whatever it is, it's good to have an answer as to why you're changing role if you are. Point number 5, learn how to use basic tech. The tech that, as soon as you fall down this kind of thing, then what happens is the antennae of the person interviewing you goes right up, and they're like, oh, yeah, that stereotype that they can't, this person can't use the computer. Yep, they've just proven it. And that's it, you're out the way. So be very aware of the fact that you need to plan these things. So if you're going to be having an interview by Zoom or by Microsoft Teams, allow plenty of time. Make sure you're well set up. Things happen that mean that you can't get on. But when you're older, it does mean that it's much harder to get back again, to get out of it. So do that. If you're giving a presentation, if it's appropriate to do a PowerPoint and your PowerPoint skills are a little bit rusty, brush up on them. Don't just think, oh, I hope they won't notice that I haven't got a PowerPoint today. These things matter. You will have to push yourself a little out of your comfort zone sometimes to do this, but it gets you into work. It does matter. And there's lots of freebie workshops out there. You can either, do a full-on course, but if you want to brush up on your IT skills, there's lots of things online that you can do. And also practice any tests that you're asked to do as part of an interview, practice those as well. Just put at the bottom, leave the good old days in the past. Sometimes we older people say things like oh, they didn't used to do this in my day. Or even just using the words used to can make you sound older. So get the language right as well. Don't try to avoid saying things that do actually age you as well. And as I'm saying all these things, I am talking from experience as well. I'm not saying it's easy to do any of this. I probably should have said this earlier on. I work in a team where there's 15 of us, and we're all different ages. And I'm very aware of the fact that probably some of the young people think that I'm past it at times and older. So I do practice. I do certainly try very hard to practice a lot of these things myself as well. I don't always get it right, but I'm aware of them and do my best. And I think the awareness is part of it, I think. Don't limit your job search is the final one. Open your mind to the hidden job market. There is a hidden job market out there. Not every job will be advertised. Be aware that there are jobs most jobs are found through networking. And that's either through talking to people, asking them for information, not a job. We run a networking workshop and we run a LinkedIn workshop to help you further. Have your strong 30-second elevator pitch, 30 seconds no more, and be ready to talk to people. You might go there kicking and screaming. I've spoken to lots of clients who hate networking and say, it's never going to be part for me, it's never going to be part of my job search. Start small. It's about building relationships. The more you can do it, the quicker your job search will move forward. So it is worth not opting out, but I do understand that it's not an easy thing to do. Absolutely have an online presence. For almost all jobs, LinkedIn is worth having. Not every single job, but almost all. It's worth having at least LinkedIn. I know a lot of people don't want LinkedIn. They say, I've heard before things like, I'm a private person, it's not for me, I can't go there. LinkedIn is probably the best one for you if that's the case, because it's not personal. You only have to put anything to do with work down there and nothing more. So try and get past that, because an employer will look for you on LinkedIn and they'll expect you to be there. And if just the fact you're not there, they will make assumptions by virtue of the fact that you're not there. Plus, obviously, LinkedIn helps you in so many other things in terms of networking and so on. But actually, that presence is really important. Look the part. Do think about what you wear. Do think about whether you look the part when you go for an interview, when you meet somebody, when you network as well. It matters. So, older workers. Myth or reality, this is how I started. Out of date, demonstrate you're skilled and up to date. Won't embrace new technology? Absolutely embrace new technology as much as you possibly can. Demonstrate that you're full of energy, enthusiasm, passion by the words you use, by what you say on a CV, by what you say when you're talking to people. Do things more slowly. Show them how hardworking you are. Work on letting them know about the things that they're already thinking about you, the reliability, so that they know that actually taking you on, they're more likely to get somebody who's reliable than if they take a younger person. Stuck in a different age, change that to demonstrating your experience. With age comes experience. Need high-powered roles or won't stay? Been there, done that, show that you'll take instructions. Won't want learning and development, show that you're keen to upskill. Talk to them about the fact that you're keen to upskill. So even though you might be taking a lower level role, actually you're still keen to upskill and to talk. Sorry, I just went onto the second screen by mistake. And that you want to learn new things. Think they know it all, rather than saying, I I used to do this in my last firm. There's a much better way of doing this. Let's do it in my way. I've done it. I've done this for years. Things like that. You often hear people saying things like that. Be ready to pass on knowledge if it's wanted, if it's needed, but be a little bit sparing about the good old days and how things used to be done, because people won't thank you for it. And that way, this will be a myth. The fact that older workers are not the people who you want to take on will be a myth and not a reality. So some steps that you can take: believe in yourself, know what you have to offer, upskill, have a good CV, contemporary, relevant CV, change it every time. Find the right environment. Don't think you can apply everywhere. Think what's right for you. Build an online presence and network with others. And ask for help. We at Work Avenue are here to help you. Very happy to meet with you on a one-to-one basis at any time, plus all the workshops that we run. Just leave you, I don't know if there's some questions at all, Richard, but I will leave you with some final thoughts.
No, there haven't been any questions, Mel. Maybe people might have some now, though. But sorry, go on.
Okay. If anybody has any questions, then please put them in the chat, or just let me know, and I'm very happy to answer any questions at all. So, some final thoughts. Believe in yourself. Don't let age dominate your job search. And I have spoken to many clients who start off the meeting by saying to me, I'm too old. I know that's why I'm not getting the job. I know that's why I didn't get through to the interview. It's because of my age. If you assume that everything is down to your age, it will be. You have to put all the other things into place to help it to happen. Now, I'm not saying that that's a recipe for everything's going to be absolutely fine, but it certainly helps a lot. So don't let it dominate your job search. Bring energy and enthusiasm. Demonstrate that you've got that. That energy is really important. Be relevant. Make sure you're talking about things that have happened recently, not things that happened a long, long time ago. If you've had a gap, then do some voluntary work to close that gap so that you give yourself some experience to draw on. Be yourself, but be the best version of yourself that you can be. Think about how to present yourself when you're out. It really does matter. Know your relevant strengths. Apply your experience, your soft skills, your work ethic, your years of know-how. Let people know you have those, but don't rub their faces in it either. And look for ways of developing those skills and capabilities further. Any questions? Have I stumped you all? Are there no questions in the chat, Richard?
No questions in the chat.
Sorry, I've got questions. I just couldn't unmute myself.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, thanks very much for that. Just as a bit of a guide, please, Mel. How far back on a CV do you think you should go?
So as a guide, it's probably around 10, 15 years most. But it does depend on your individual experience. So it would be worth us looking at that with you and saying, right, okay, how can we illustrate that in the best possible way? But as a guide, you don't really want things on there that happened in the 1990s if you can possibly avoid them.
Yeah, but it's just if it's only going to show like sort of like one or two jobs and it's not showing any progression whatsoever. I mean, yes, it's quite a skilled, high-powered job, but it's just giving some sort of background as well, maybe. Don't know.
It could be. I mean, it could be that one job you had two different roles, perhaps. So you could perhaps open those out. Is that the case or not? Okay, we can look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
We can definitely look at it. Or it could be that you have an earlier career section. It might be worth doing that.
Okay.
So we just need to look at you as an individual. Rich, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier career section as well. It really does depend on the individual. I mean, you certainly don't want to be going back years and years and years, but sometimes you do only have one or two jobs, but you know, do you then add jobs from many years ago? You know, we kind of feel like you'll put yourself at a disadvantage by doing that. So it's weighing up, you know, what's going to be best for you. You know, you lose out in one area, but then you gain in another area. But yeah, general rule of thumb is 15 years or thereabouts. But it's so individual, as Mel said. So if you haven't had an appointment with a careers advisor, myself, Melanie, or Hannah, then do that, and we can look at it specifically.
Okay. Any other
Thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions?
I've got another one then. Sorry.
No,
New to me. What's the return to work program?
So there isn't the return to work program.
Right.
It's just sometimes there are return to work programs.
Right.
So it's something. I mean, I googled it last night, and a couple did come up. So sometimes if you've worked in perhaps a city firm, city firms sometimes run them for people who have had a career gap.
Okay.
And then they run sort of like, I had a client who did this. She'd been out of the workplace for about 15 years. She was a solicitor, and she became a childminder while her children were young. And then she wanted to go back to law. And she did a 2-week intensive induction program, or onboarding program, and then very soon afterwards actually got a job in a local law firm, because they were happy to take her, because they felt that, okay, she hasn't forgotten the experience that she had, plus she's done this intensive program. So they can be good. They are quite hard to get onto. They are quite competitive, but can be worth looking. It's just one option.
Yeah, I've had a few clients that have gone back into work through those programs. There's quite a lot of them out there. Yeah. Mel, we have had another question. Sure. If one is looking, so Becky asks, if one is looking to reignite a career path from the past, and you haven't been in the sector for a long period of time, how best is it to reconnect to that sector, particularly if it is of a professional nature? Can I ask Becky, I'm sorry, Mel, if you don't mind me, just Becky, what career is it? That would help us answer the question. Maybe either put in the chat or unmute yourself.
In the legal sector.
Right. So you're saying you were a lawyer many years?
No, I wasn't. Oh. No, I wasn't a lawyer.
Okay.
I was in the sector. I was working in a practice.
Were you a legal secretary or legal administrator?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but obviously nowadays they want you to hit the ground running. And although I've got experience and knowledge, it's not so easy to get back into it.
So there's two things that come to mind. One is to focus on your transferable skills. So the skills that you've got from the jobs that you've been doing in between, and I don't know exactly what those are, but if you have some other roles that, although you weren't working for a legal firm, you were working still as an administrator or PA, and doing some of that work, then you have some very strong transferable skills to transfer you over. And the important thing is not to use language like, I now want to go back into the legal sector. You demonstrate that actually you're a very experienced PA with experience in the legal sector. So you've got that additional experience. As soon as you use words like going back to, then they know that they read that as she doesn't have the experience. So do be careful about the language. And the other thing is to get some voluntary work, whether you can do that. Not so easy, I know, to get that in a law firm. It's most likely to come through your network, through talking to somebody and saying to them, could I come and support you 1 day a week, or for 2 weeks, for 2 weeks, just doing some basic admin so that I'm part of I'm back into what I used to do. There's two possibilities that I can think of, I think.
Actually, funny you should say that, because I was on JVN's website, and for those of you that don't know, JVN is Jewish Volunteer Network, and they help provide all the Jewish charities with volunteers in a variety of ways. And I just on there, I think yesterday, and the Paperweight Trust, which I suppose is you know, it's linked, connected with legal matters. I think they had a couple of vacancies on there. I can't remember exactly what they were, but if there was an administrative or some sort of I don't know, office-based assisting role, then that could be something that you could do voluntarily to feel a bit more confident, have something to put on your CV, have something to talk about at interview, and generally feel more confident about going back into the legal world. So
can I just really back you up? Because I had advice from Mel several years back to do some volunteering. And I volunteered for Jewish Care, and I volunteered for the Clubhouse. I now work for the Clubhouse consultancy, and I did a little spell at Jewish Care. It wasn't right for me, I left. However, both of those helped me to get into a sector that I hadn't been in before. So I just want to back up and say thank you to Work Avenue really for that. So it does matter. You meet people through the volunteering, and especially when if you want them to see how dynamic you are and not an alter cucker, so to speak, it's a really good way for people to get who you are.
That's great. Thanks, Karen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'll back that up from my own experience as well. You know, sort of volunteering, you are actually part of a team. And, you know, when I was starting my own business and I was volunteering half a day a week, whether or not I had work, I knew that on a Thursday morning, actually it was Thursday morning, I had somewhere to go. Now, when you're looking for a job, that's not always so easy because you know you're not going to be there for very long. But you can sort of still, you could volunteer, say, 3 days a week or 2.5 days a week, and spend the other half of the week looking for work alongside it. So I don't think it can even be less than that. It doesn't eat into your job searching time. What it means is that you can talk in the present tense. So when somebody says, can you tell me about a situation that you recently dealt with where it involved a legal matter, you can say, well, actually just last week in my role as a volunteer I did. And that's what you're looking for, is that current experience, as well as so much more, you know, structure to your week and somewhere to go, a reason to get up in the morning, something different to do, and meeting people. Thank you very much. We're coming to the end of our allotted time. I hope that's been helpful to you. I know we've kind of broached this subject head on. It's not a pretty subject, it's not a nice subject. Talking about age, it's not something that we really want to do. But because it's there and because a lot of us feel it, it's worth approaching it and thinking, what do I do about it? You know, let me make sure that, because those stereotypes are out there, let me make sure that I don't appear as one of them. So I hope that this has helped you to do that. This session will be recorded, has been recorded, and will be on our website. And so you'll be able to see it again if you want to, if there are any points that you need. Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck. And obviously feel free to be in touch with us to meet on a one-to-one basis, and we can look at your individual circumstances as well. Moving on, the next session is our just 12:05, isn't it? 12 o'clock, yes. At 12:05, so you get a chance to have another 5